Failures are an inevitable part of life, but failures can help us grow instead of us questioning everything in our lives. Now, one of the things that I've had to deal with is thinking that if my business fails, does that make me a failure? If this thing in my life fails, relationship fails, my business fails, my health fails, does that mean I'm a failure? What's up, team? It's David, your head coach at Cliffhanger Academy. Welcome to another Psychology Fitness Lab episode. And today we're going to go after something that I have definitely had some issues with in my career, particularly when it comes to my health, my wealth, and my relationships, and that's failure. Now, failure is an inevitable thing that's going to occur in our daily, weekly, monthly, yearly lives, especially if we consider ourselves a high performer who's always trying to push those boundaries and trying to kind of get to that next level and we're out of our comfort zone. So what quote unquote failure is something that's going to happen on a regular basis. Now, we talked about failure being a perspective problem or perception problem before in one of our previous episodes, but today we're going to go a little bit different and take a little bit different of a turn in how we look at this, because failure is definitely a perspective thing. Because if we think we're failing in one area, we may actually not be, we may actually just be learning. So one way to look at this failure is to just flip it on its head and look at it as a learning opportunity. But let's just say that we blow this out a little bit and we talk about it being a failure. Now, one of the things that in psychology we have is called coupling, where we bring two things together and we link them intimately together. So if one happens, the other is destined to happen. So in this case, coupling refers to with failure is that if I'm a failure here, then I'm a failure. So if I failed here, then I'm a failure. So example, if I failed by not eating what I said I was going to eat, or actually ate too many desserts, that second helping of ice cream, I'm a failure. You know, if my business didn't take off the way I wanted to, we weren't making the money we wanted to, we're not affecting the people we wanted to, then I'm a failure. If that relationship I was in didn't work out and that relationship quote unquote failed, then I'm a failure. Now, this is a really powerful concept that I know a lot of us struggle with, and I sometimes get caught up in as well. And I've definitely got caught up in all three of those categories, and I'll talk about more examples of those as we go on. But team, I want you to think about this though. Just because you fail in something doesn't mean you're a failure. Remember, failure is a perception problem or perspective problem, because we can always look at it as a learning opportunity. But just because you quote unquote failed at something doesn't make you a failure. You're a failure to me if you're not even trying, if you're not even going out there and putting yourself in the ring, on the court, and actually making an attempt to do these things. Now, this is where it gets a little bit tricky, because if we're out there and we're doing these things, like I said before, failure will be inevitable. But let's break this down. So for me, for my health, I'm actually injured again, which is just fucking annoying, because I've been injured more than I've not been over the last 3 years. Now, one of the things you would think is that, okay, I'm injured, I failed at keeping my body healthy, so therefore I'm a failure. No, I'm trying to look at this as a learning opportunity. Even though I do get down sometimes, and there's an initial down, which we need to respect our emotions and our feelings, but I'm trying to learn from this. I'm trying to learn that I need to concentrate more on mobility. I need to concentrate more on warming up properly, cooling down properly, my recovery, my sleep, my nutrition, my supplements, all these different things. In my business at Cliffhanger Academy, one of the biggest things I struggled with for a long time when we weren't making the numbers, when we weren't having the impact, when we didn't have the people, when we didn't have the income streams, is that I thought I was a failure because my business was quote unquote failing. But what I didn't realize, I was actually learning. I was learning to not chase certain rabbits down certain holes. I was learning to concentrate on the things that I'm really good at, which are educating / teaching and coaching. You know, I was learning about how to build a business, which I had no idea before. So I wasn't failing, I was learning. And so just because I thought my business was quote unquote failing, doesn't mean I was a failure. Now, of course, in our relationships, this is a really tough one. Now, we've all had relationships that didn't work out. For one reason or another, maybe they were a 3-month relationship, maybe they were a 3-year relationship, like one of the ones that I had in my past relationships, where I looked at as that, yeah, that was 3 years of my life that I dedicated to someone else. And guess what? That relationship failed. And that was a really hard thing for me to overcome because I was coupling those two things together and thinking that I was a failure because of the failed relationship. Now, in reality, that wasn't true. I showed up in that relationship as best as I can, as much as I can. Not saying I was perfect by any means in that relationship. And if you're any of my exes that are listening to this, you know that I had a lot of opportunities to grow. But that's what I've been doing. I've been growing in these relationships. I've been trying to become the better person, the better man, the better partner. And I have been doing that through these relationships. So these relationships weren't failures. They were actually opportunities for growth. And I was able to show up as a better person for other people that I would meet, or other people in my life, my friends, my family, my coworkers, my colleagues, people that I'm leading. It was amazing when we actually flipped the script of getting rid of the failure mentality, that we're not failing, we're actually learning, and that just because if we think we are failing, we're not a failure, team. So I want you to let this sink in for a minute. I want you to think about where in your life, in your health, your wealth, and your relationships specifically, do you deem yourself failing? And does that make you a failure? Now, if you're like me, yeah, that did make me feel like a failure in some of these spots. And I really had to do the work to get over that. And that's why I want to share this lesson with you, team. This is a scar that I took on from failing and then thinking I was a failure that I don't want you to be dealing with. Remember, look at that thing in your health, maybe where you're not eating the things you know you need to be eating or getting to the gym as much as you need to, just realizing that you got some work to do there, and then you're learning how to do that work and what actually works for you. You know, in your wealth, like, you know, if the presentation didn't go well, or, you know, that talk you had with your boss or a colleague maybe about a raise didn't go well, or, you know, if you're an entrepreneur like me, the business isn't showing the results that you thought it would. Remember that you're not failing, you're learning, and you're not a failure just because you're learning. You're a student. And lastly, in our relationships, which can be a really big one. We all have relationships that didn't work out, whether it be friends, family, loved ones, intimate partners, whatever it is. And the key is to not look back on those relationships as a failure, but that you were learning and that you learned something from those relationships. And think about this. If there's relationships that you need to repair for yourself, look at that right now and see, where did you think you failed? Reframe it and see that you could actually be looking at that as a way that you learned something. And instead of labeling yourself the failure, you're now a student. Team, this is a really deep one, so I want you to definitely take some time to let it sink in. Be sure you're hitting us in the comments below of what and how this landed for you. We want to know, you know, what we can do to make this lesson better for you. This psychology fitness lesson land at a higher level for you, because that's what we're all about at Cliffhanger Academy. We want to make these lessons for you guys so you guys can learn from the scars that we, and me particularly, have had in my life, where I thought I was a failure and I realized that I wasn't. I was learning and I was a student, and I actually came out higher on the other end of that. Well, team, leave those comments directly below. Make sure you give us a thumbs up and you subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any other psychology fitness episodes that we have coming up. And of course, if you have any QCCs, questions, comments, or concerns, be sure to leave in the comments below or hit us up and DM us to let us know what we can do for you. And of course, team, make sure you are DMing us and letting us know what subjects you want us to talk about next in our upcoming psychology fitness episodes. We make these videos for you because we want you to be healthy in your health, your wealth, your relationships, by training your brain, your body, and your breath as one, so you can start living that limitless lifestyle that you deserve.